All right, welcome back, everyone, especially to our listeners prepping for those UPSC exams. We're diving back into GS1 modern history today, picking up where our last deep dive left off. If you remember, last time we covered those massive political and economic shifts in modern India, but this time we're switching gears a bit. We're looking at how Indians expressed themselves, resisted the British Raj, and really forged a cultural identity, all through art and literature.
That's right. It's a whole different perspective.
It is. And we've got some really fascinating excerpts from an academic text to guide us. This one focuses on the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And believe me, this isn't just dry facts and figures.
No, not at all.
We're going to uncover the spirit of that era.
Absolutely get a feel for it.
Yeah. So we'll be exploring the rise of Indian cinema, the power of theater, those big names like Tagore and Premchand. And we can't forget the role of all those organizations that fueled these movements. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with something I bet a lot of you are familiar with, but maybe haven't thought about in this historical light: the rise of Indian cinema. Our source gives us this really cool timeline. It all starts with the very first silent film back in 1913, Raja Harishchandra.
I bet most people haven't even heard of that one.
Right. It's amazing to think about.
Now, silent films, that was a global thing, of course. But India quickly developed its own WN style.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is, even back then, those regional identities were already playing a huge role.
Oh, absolutely, shaping those styles.
Yeah. The source actually points out how different regions adopted sound at different paces, like Bengal and South India. They were early birds when it came to talkies.
Yeah.
When Alamara came out in 1931.
Right. Shows how strong those regional identities were already, influencing how art developed.
Exactly. And speaking of art, the source breaks down the types of films that were popular back then. Social films, dealing with those contemporary issues, those are all the rage. But of course, always with that dash of melodrama, song and dance.
Oh, always. Gotta have that.
Some things never change, huh?
Nope, guess not.
But it's fascinating, right? Even then, filmmakers used those elements to really connect with people.
Oh, on an emotional level, for sure.
Yeah. While also tackling those important social themes. And here's something even more interesting. Western musical influences were already starting to appear.
Really? That early?
Yeah. Makes you think, was it just entertainment? Or was there a subtle form of resistance happening there too?
That's a great point. Adapting those influences, but keeping that Indian core.
Exactly. Okay, let's shift gears now. From the silver screen to the stage, the world of Indian theater. Our source takes us back to South India, where you had those traditional forms like Kathakali, with their elaborate costumes, the expressive gestures, that captivating storytelling.
Oh, visually spectacular. Really.
They weren't just entertainment, though. They were acts of cultural preservation, resisting that British influence.
Absolutely pushing back.
And theater. That provided such a direct, powerful platform for it. Like, get this, the very first Bengali stage play, performed in Calcutta back in 1795. It was actually a mix of English and Bengali.
Wow, really?
Yeah. The play was called The Disguise. It was based on an English comedy, actually, written by a Russian Indologist named Lebedev.
A Russian Indologist, wow.
It just shows that cultural exchange back then wasn't just one way.
Not just the British imposing.
It was this complex flow of ideas, multi-directional.
Definitely challenges that simple narrative.
And that complexity is even more obvious when you look at a play like Nil Darpin. This one was written in the 1860s, and it caused a major uproar. Our source describes it as exposing the atrocities committed by those British indigo planters.
Wow, so it was like investigative journalism, but on stage?
Exactly. It shows the power of art to challenge authority, advocate for social justice. And get this, it actually had real-world consequences. The play's impact was so big, it led to an official Indigo Commission.
Really? That's incredible.
Right, to investigate those abuses. Now, speaking of impact, we can't forget those major figures like Tagore and Prithviraj Kapoor. Their work, along with so many others, it shows this was a movement, not just isolated artists.
Definitely a movement.
Makes you think about the legacy. Indian theater today often blends those traditional and Western styles. Is that a continuation of what started back then?
That's a question we're thinking about.
It is. And speaking of figures who shaped this era, let's move on to two literary giants who deserve their own spotlight: Tagore and Premchand. Now, I'm sure you've heard of them, but our source gives us some fresh perspectives. Tagore, for instance, he led a global life, traveling widely, even met Albert Einstein.
Wow, Einstein.
Right. But what's crucial to understand about Tagore is that he wasn't just an artist. He was a public intellectual. deeply engaged in the social and political scene. He actively promoted the Swadeshi movement, had strong views on education. He even established his own school, Shanti Niketan, which later became Visavaradi University.
Oh, right.
And of course, he achieved international recognition when he won the Nobel Prize in Literature back in 1913 for his poetry collection, Gitanjali.
A classic.
It is, full of beautiful reflections on life, nature, spirituality. Like there's this one line in Gitanjali he writes, "Thou hast made me endless, such is thy pleasure." Just a glimpse into his genius.
Beautiful.
And what's remarkable is, even with all that global fame, Tagore never shied away from criticizing the British.
Interesting.
Yeah. Shows the complexity of his position, right? Navigating that acclaim while still fighting for his people.
Definitely complex.
Now let's turn to Premchand. Here's a fascinating detail from the source. His early novels were actually written in Urdu.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
But he's best known for revolutionizing Hindi short stories, making them accessible to a wider audience.
Bridging that linguistic divide.
Exactly. He brought those stories of everyday struggles to so many more people.
Fostering that shared experience.
And what stories they were. Our source highlights some key themes: arranged marriages, caste oppression, rural exploitation. Premchand was a master of social commentary, using fiction to expose the realities of life for ordinary Indians.
Powerful stuff.
It is. He was writing at a time when India was going through such rapid transformation. His work captured all those anxieties, hopes, struggles of the people caught in the middle of it.
Gave voice to the voiceless.
Exactly. And it wasn't just these individual authors making waves,
Right.
Our source points out all these organizations that were vital in fostering those movements.
Oh, absolutely.
Easy to overlook, but they were really the backbone.
They were providing those platforms,
Yeah. For artists to connect, collaborate, amplify their voices. Like in Andhra Pradesh, for example. You had the Sahiti Samiti, which emerged as this prominent literary organization.
Okay.
Led by Srivasangra, who was known as Anna Guru, brought together short story writers, poets, even painters, nurturing that artistic community.
A real hub.
They were so dedicated, they even started their own journal called Sahiti.
Wow, that's dedication.
Right. And over in Maharashtra, we had the Ravikiran Mandal, also known as the Sunday Club, founded in 1923.
Okay.
This one focused on the fusion of poetry and music, a space for poets like Girish, Yashwant, and Madhav Dwabin to share their work.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they collaborated with musicians, too.
So it wasn't just separate art forms, it was all blending.
Exactly. A lot of cross-pollination happening. Oh, and we can't forget about Orissa, where a group of intellectuals formed the Sabuja.
Sambuja.
This group attracted some big names like Sarachandra Mukherjee and Kalindacharan Panigrahi, all about promoting Odia, literature, and culture.
So each region had its own focus.
Yeah. But they all contributed to this larger tapestry of Indian art and literature.
Shows the diversity, the richness of that period.
It really does. And it's clear that art and literature in colonial India weren't just, passive reflections.
No, they were active forces shaping identity.
Fueling the struggle for independence.
Exactly. Tools for expression, resistance.
Creating that new sense of what it meant to be Indian.
Powerful stuff.
Like, remember Nil Darpan, the play about the indigo planters?
Right.
Perfect example of art directly impacting social and political change.
Absolutely.
And then you think about Tagore's global influence. Premchand bridging those linguistic divides.
It's incredible.
Their legacy continues to inspire today.
For sure.
Tagore's poetry still resonates worldwide. Premchand's stories are still being adapted for film and TV.
A testament to their power.
And for our UPSC aspirants out there, this is crucial stuff, understanding these cultural and intellectual currents. It's essential for grasping the complexities of modern Indian history.
Absolutely. Can't just memorize facts.
Right. So, to wrap things up, here's the key takeaway. Art and literature in colonial India. There were more than just pretty pictures or entertaining stories. They were weapons in the fight for freedom, tools for social change, crucibles where a new Indian identity was forged.
Beautifully put.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit finds ways to express itself, to resist, to create beauty.
And that's something worth celebrating.
It is. And on that note, we'll leave you with a final thought. Both Tagore and Premchand are still widely read today in India and beyond. What does that say about the enduring power of their work? What messages do their stories continue to convey to us in the 21st century?
Good questions.
Questions worth exploring. And to help you out, we've included links to some of their most famous works in the show notes. Be sure to check them out. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review, share this episode with your fellow UPSC warriors.
The more the merrier.
Exactly. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those creative sparks flying.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how their work still speaks to us today about identity, social justice, all those things.
They were ahead of their time, really.
True visionaries, you could say.
Yes.
Their insights are just as relevant now as they were back then.
It shows you that human experience. It transcends time and place. All those complexities, challenges, we're still grappling with them.
We are, for sure.
And for our listeners getting ready for the UPSC exam, this deep dive into art and literature, it's just one piece of the puzzle, of course.
Right.
But it's an important piece and helps you understand that broader context, the historical, cultural, intellectual forces that shaped modern India.
You need that background.
Exactly. Remember, the UPSC exam isn't just about memorizing facts.
No, it's about understanding.
It's about connecting the dots, seeing the big picture, developing your own critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. Gotta think for yourself.
And that's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive, equipping you with the knowledge and insights, not just to ace those exams, but to become informed, engaged citizens.
That's the goal.
Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? Using knowledge to make a difference.
Couldn't agree more.
So, to all our UPSC aspirants out there, keep up the hard work, stay curious, never stop exploring.
That's the spirit.
And to all our listeners, whether you're prepping for exams or just love learning, thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive, so stay tuned. Until then, keep those minds sharp and those spirits soaring.
We'll see you next time.